Hello and welcome to Beth's Kitchen and Garden. Today I'm going to be taking out some of those wooden roll bars that are in there and putting some planking in its place. So let's go and have a look at what I need to do. As like always, a job is never as straightforward as you think it's going to be. I've got some long planks of wood like this piece here in the front garden. And what I want to do is to take out these side bits here. This one isn't looking too bad actually, but some of them are looking a bit worse for wear. So I've decided, like here for instance, it's rotting away. So I've decided that I'm going to take this one out, which is typically the better of the four beds. But I'm going to start with this bed very simply because it's 1.2 meters wide and the rest of the beds need a little work on them. So for instance, this one is only about a meter wide, so I need to lengthen it, and then this one down the bottom, that's 1.3 meters wide. And ideally I want them all to be the same size so that I can swap the cloches over that I'm going to build for them. So there's going to be some net cloches, and that way if I need a cloche on this bed for instance, then I can just take it from here and put it on there. And then if this bed is growing sort of sweet corn for instance, which doesn't need covering, then I'm not having to disassemble and reassemble things all the time. So I think it'll make my workload easier. So it won't be too difficult to take this out. But what I do need to do first is I need to bury the pipe. This is my irrigation system and I just need to bury it underneath, so when I put the new bed in place I won't have to mess around with drilling in holes for the hose to go through and things like that. I can just bury the hose in the ground and then just put the bed on top. That's the plan anyway. So I better get on and get it done. And here's the beds all finished now. They should be 1.20 meters by 1.40 meters roughly. I did have to lose a couple of the Swedes to do this end bit, and that's what they came out looking like. So not a great Swede harvest there. There's still 4 more. I'm just going to leave them as long as I can to see if they grow into anything. But I'm pleased with how this bed is looking. It's I think it's going to make it a bit easier to keep on top of. And now that bed surround is finished, let's go and have a look at my compost and see what homemade compost we've got to go in it. I only want to put an inch or so on top of the compost that's there, so hopefully I'll be able to manage that with my heaps that I've got. Before I show you the compost heap, I'm going to plant my multi-sown onions and some of these radish into the bed in my greenhouse, because there's lots of gaps, well, not lots of gaps, but there's middle bits where my onions can go. My radish can go in the middle, and then my onions will go to fill up the bits that are not in use yet. So I shall get on and do that. Good looking roots. They're desperate to get into the ground. So there's the radish, looking nice actually. They look quite healthy. Hopefully they'll grow and they won't bolt. Then I've got my infill of onion there, and then the rest of the onions are down that side. I was hoping to put some peas in here, and I have started them off inside, but when I was leaning over to plant these onions, this shelf was in the way, and it will be in the way for me to harvest. So I think what I might do is I'll plant those peas into a large pot, and I'll just put the pot there for the time being, and then when the weather warms up, and in April hopefully, I can put the peas outside. But let's go and have a look at the compost heaps now. Slight change of plan on the old compost. It is raining pouring, and it has been raining and sleeting for the last 2 days. So I'm going to work in the greenhouse instead and get a few bits and bobs done in here. And we'll do the compost in the next one, when hopefully it'll have stopped raining. I also have broad beans to sow, and probably more peas to sow, and lettuce to sow in pots as like a cut and come again lettuce, and lots of different seeds to get going. So we'll crack on with that. I'll do the peas out here, but I might move into the house to do the rest because it's really cold. It's quite biting on your hands to get stuff done, so I might as well go in the warm inside and try not to make too much of a mess in my clean house. I've had these peas growing on my windowsill in the house. Well, they started off in my grow light and then progressed to the windowsill, and now they're going in a pot in my greenhouse. So these are really ready to get going. I have here a pot of old spent potato compost. You can see the potatoes are still in here. I'll empty these out in a minute. But the reason these are still in here is because I was growing them in the front greenhouse over the winter. And funnily enough, 2 of the pots in the greenhouse have survived, and I've got potatoes growing nicely in them, and this one, which was in the middle, hasn't. So why that has happened, I'm not sure, but I'm going to put that pot over there now, like I said earlier, because the peas will be too awkward to harvest over there, and I figure if it gets too cold in here, then I can take the pot outside and the peas can grow on outside in the spring. Found myself a couple of potatoes there, which is great. So I've just taken off about the top level of compost, which I want to add a bit of fish blood and bone in, and then I left this half in, and I'm just going to add a bit of fish blood and bone to this as well. There's no point in me taking out all that compost, because peas tend to be fairly shallow rooted, so they won't go all the way to the bottom of this pot, in my experience in the past. So I'm just going to refresh that and then put this compost on top, and maybe then add a little bit of fresh compost from there. here's how the peas have ended up. I'm not entirely convinced that this is going to work very well, because I think the peas might grow through that, and then there'll be a load of peas on the other side that I can't get to. But we'll have to see how it goes. And when the peas get a bit bigger, I just need to run some rope around the outside, just to push the peas back so they stick to the mesh essentially. So yeah, that's just an experiment to see how they are going to work. You never know. And then these are my shallots that I planted before, and my broad beans which haven't poked through yet. And down here I sowed some more, well, not sowed, but I put the shallots into the soil so the roots could start to grow. These shallots were given to me by my neighbour, and then pretty much everything else is as it normally is. Those are the potatoes that I got out of the pot that I've now got the peas in, so there's probably enough there for me to have a very small potato salad, which is great. And then I've got some more stuff to go into the house to do some potting on of seedlings and such like. I have spent a bit of today inside where I sowed some more broad beans and some peas in some root trainers, just because I used the root trainers, the smaller root trainers, so they could stay on my windowsill in the front room, just to see whether they would germinate quicker than the ones that I've got in the on the shelf over there, because they seem to be taking an age to come up. And what else did I do? I also sowed some leeks, the first of my leeks, probably the last of my leeks as well for this year, as I seem to be running out of space already. And I also did my lettuce in pots, and sowed some tomatoes in pots as well, and they will be pricked out if they grow. I do seem to have a lot of varieties of tomatoes on the go, far more than I've got room for, but some of them are quite old, so I'm not sure if they are going to come up. And I've just put the lettuce under the grow units, just really to try and aid the germination. Once they germinated, they'll come back in here, as will the broad beans. And now I'm going to go in and pot on some of the aubergines and the dill I've got. But I'll leave it here for today, because well, it's all a bit gloomy, and well, this vlog has gone on long enough, isn't it? So I'm really pleased with what I've got done today. I'm really pleased to get that new bed into the garden. I think that's going to be really good for growing in, and when I get a chance, I shall get into the compost and just add a layer of mulch over the top, like an inch or so, just for fertility for this coming year. And yeah, hopefully you can join me next time, where I will hopefully be doing that if the weather plays ball. So that's it from me for today. Thank you for watching, liking, subscribing and commenting if you have done so. I really do appreciate it. And all I can say about my work today is lovely job, and take care everybody.